Good evening, everyone. My name is Celeste Kramer, and I'm the Development Director at Inspire School of Arts and Sciences. Inspire School of Arts and Sciences is a tuition-free public charter school in Chico, California that specializes in helping students pursue careers in the arts and sciences. Tonight, we are hosting a new educational webinar about parenting teens. This series includes 1-hour sessions facilitated by parents, local experts, and educators with the goal of helping parents and families navigate challenging topics. There are a range of topics we'll be covering, from tonight's session on helping teens deal with trauma and crisis, to helping teens have a healthy transition from middle school to high school, to building positive mental health in teens, to teaching constructive social discourse. We're hopeful that these webinars shed some light and offer insight, making it easier to start critical conversations with teens in your life. You can learn more about the entire series by visiting inspirechico.org. The topics we are taking on during this series are things on our minds every day at Inspire, and we want to expand our work to include our entire community in the conversation. So thank you for joining us tonight for our session on helping teens. Sorry, I'm lost my place. For teens who are dealing with the transition to high school, the challenges of building and maintaining social connections, and the everyday stressors of school and home life, prioritizing mental health is critical to overall well-being and success. Tonight, we're going to discuss information and tips to support parents in fostering wellness in their teens so that they can effectively cope with the challenges that they're facing. It'll be facilitated by Deana Ward, who's an RN and former program manager for Butte County Behavioral Health, and Juni Banerjee-Stevens, who's a PhD, former clinical director at the Counseling and Wellness Center at Chico State, and founder of the Deer Park Counseling and Consulting. This workshop will cover research on mental health and the outdoors, tools for teaching teens flexibility and resilience, and why now is a critical time to teach these skills. So welcome, everyone, and I will go ahead and let the two of you introduce yourself and expand.
Go from there.
Go from there.
Okay. Like Celeste said, my name is Deana Ward. I'm an RN with my master's degree in health systems leadership and psychiatric nursing. I was a former program manager of 5 different crisis units in Butte County at Butte County Behavioral Health. I'm currently working now as a charge nurse at Enloe Behavioral Health and an instructor full-time at Butte Community College. Today, this is just an informal presentation with a hope. My intent is to promote dialogue about caring for our youth, our teens, ourselves as parents and caregivers, and the benefits of the outdoors as a part of that. And I'm looking forward to sharing that information that I have with you tonight and inviting any questions that you may have. Juni, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yes, indeed. So hi, everyone out there in Zoom land and Facebook land. My name is Juni Banerjee-Stevens. Thank you for inviting me to this, Celeste, and thank you for letting me kind of nudge my way in, Deana, on your presentation. So I guess my nefarious plan is to, I am an Inspire parent. I do have one child at Inspire. And I have another child who is probably, hopefully going to be joining her next year. So I know the struggle is real, y'all. I'm living the stress of being a parent while trying to navigate all of this unprecedented times. I would love to live in some precedented times. That's what my goal is for the future, for just things to be precedented again. But yes, my majority of my experience is working with college-age students. So, you know, we know that they are emerging adults. And so I know of our Inspire students are on that path to becoming, hopefully many of them will become college students. And of late, my focus has been on trauma recovery because that's what we are focused on here in Butte County. So yes, so I'm here to support you, Deana, and you know, hopefully we can all have a conversation about how to best support our families.
Absolutely. So Celeste, at this time, would it be appropriate for me just to share screen with PowerPoint? Okay,
Sure.
all right.
And anyone can use the chat or the question and answer if they have any questions along the whole presentation.
Okay. Just give me a minute to get into that. Share screen. Can everybody see that okay? I think I am in, if you're seeing what I'm seeing, I'd like to fix that. So we can do full screen.
So just go to slideshow and then.
Oh, okay.
Do you see the slideshow button?
I'm looking for it, Celeste. It's always like when you're under pressure, you're like, where is it?
Yes.
And we were just talking about technology. It's
Yeah.
right by animations at the top.
The word animations.
You guys really
Go to the top. Go up to the top.
I'm on shapes. Oh, okay, over here. New slide? No.
Go higher.
No. Do you see?
Higher.
Then hit slideshow.
Oh, that's why, because I can't.
Warmer. Keep going.
I literally can't see anything because I have that is covered by my Zoom stuff. So tell me when I'm there, I'll click it.
Okay.
Keep going a little to the right, I think.
Yeah, and you can.
See if I can move.
You can move that.
This.
Yeah, move that.
Oh,
up.
yeah, there we go. Oh my gosh, you guys, that's why you were talking to me like I was blind. Okay. It was hidden, I promise. Okay, back on track. Sorry, folks. Here we go. Slideshow. Okay, I hit slideshow. Now, why isn't it?
No, from beginning.
From beginning.
Oh,
this is so fun.
We are going to get this together. We are there. Thank you so much for your patience, everybody out there. Okay. So, one of my focuses is what I call outdoorsing. And it has to do with the influence of nature on our mental health. And it's something that I've done quite a bit of research on and personal practice. I love the outdoors. It makes me personally feel like a complete human being. So that is, like I said earlier, that is just an adjunct part of what can help us in our mental health and help us feel well and healthy. So I do a little bit of a discussion in that. But really what tonight's focus is going to be on is like what parents and youth are experiencing right now. The pandemic blues, that feeling of isolation, the feeling of that was just described by Celeste and Juni about, feeling like you're not doing enough, or, there's just that frustration that parents are experiencing and then kids are struggling. It's a tough time. It's a tough time right now that we're going through. And so some of the things that I wanted to share about that, so everybody kind of knew it's not just you individually the struggle is real, like Juni had said. It's something that we're experiencing collectively, some of the same things. But locally here in Butte County, they do a really good job of data collection, and they had put out some statistics that said that they had a 24% increase in crisis calls this October compared to the last, directly attributed to the pandemic and concerns. It was the majority of the calls were from parents and teachers saying, I'm seeing red flags, I'm worried about my kid or my student. And 24% increase, that's a lot. That's a big jump. And that's just speaking to us that our community is reaching out and saying like, wow, I need help. I feel like I'm floating out here, So some of the things that we can do to just recognize what may be going on with our youth, some of the red flags, I should say, if you didn't know, I've listed some of them up here, and please jump in anytime, Juni. This is just a list of things that could be manifesting themselves and indicating that there is some depression going on or some anxiety, irritability or anger. And keep in mind, you know, with teenagers, sometimes some of these are just going to be a part of the process. But, you know, it doesn't always mean that your child is depressed or experiencing anxiety if they exhibit some of these symptoms, but it could. So it's just something to watch. So sadness, hope, hopeless. Oh, go ahead, Juni. Yes, please jump in.
No, I was going to say, whenever I think of, kind of, it's not, what we're concerned about is, is my child in danger, right? Like, are they at risk of hurting themselves or doing something to somebody else? And, the one thing that I always tell parents or anybody that I'm training is, I mean, you're absolutely right, Deana, that like, I could give you like a list of like 100 more, kind of, quote unquote warning signs. I think really the bigger, the easier way to think about it for me is changes, right? Like, is this a change from how my kid was before? And, as far as depression goes, I had a mentor once tell me that, depression is guilt and anger turned inward, right? But think about it, like, we have a lot to be angry about right now, right? Like, anger is a sign that your boundaries have been violated, right? And so, like, if students are feeling like, dang it, I can't do any of the things that I was doing before, that anger is not unfounded, right? Like, they're feeling angry. But if they're turning it inward and turning that guilt, I know that it's come up in our house, like, I've got this list of, videos that I need to watch or homework that I need to do, but I'm not doing it, right? So that guilt starts to creep in. So I think that I just want to say that, to realize that it's the change in behavior that we want to pay attention to, and then just give our kids the permission to talk about what might be making them feel angry. And, if if there is some sense of guilt about, what I'm not doing is kind of taken over. So.
Thank you so much for Juni. That's an excellent point. Yeah, like, that's a really good point, because this is a list of things that commonly are exhibited in youth that are experiencing depression. But really, it comes down to changes in your kid, right? Exactly. Like, 'cause some kids could be irritable and angry since they were born, or, they could be just like or have difficulties with sleep, or just, you have to look for those changes. And as a parent and caregiver, oftentimes, I think that's what triggers the red flags. I think that's what triggered the increase in crisis calls, was not necessarily like checking off things on this list, but some of these things just started happening that never happened before. And that's our instinct, is to go like, I'm worried that my child is in danger or hurting and upset, and I want to do what I can to help them, right? Absolutely. So with that being said, oh shoot, how do I go back? Oh, there we go. Some things we can do, and this is another open dialogue. These are lists again of some suggestions. One of the most important things that I think, and that's why I put it at the top, is get support for yourself, right? I mean, parents, we're all experiencing like a super crappy time right now. It's of course our kids are, and we're concerned about them, but we're struggling too as parents and as caregivers, and we need to care for ourselves. Like Juni said, there's a lot to be angry about, and there's a lot, this is a theme that I'm hearing, especially from parents. There's a lot of guilt. I think guilt is like the number one theme. If I could pick an emotion or a feeling that people are expressing, it's guilt. I'm not doing enough. They're spending too much screen time. They're failing in classes, and I don't know how to help them. I don't even know how to do this math. Just different things that a parent is feeling like, I'm not enough, right? So we have to address that. We have to acknowledge it's there, and we have to get support, So that's critical. Juni, do you have anything to say on that, as far as like parents seeking support in our community? Yeah. I'll have some resources at the end, but just generally.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, the other theme that's probably going to be central to tonight's, discussion is you know, relationships matter right now more than anything. Like all of the research on trauma that I'm, you know, consuming right now, like you know, spoiler alert, the end of the story is that relationships are what are going to get us through this.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a parent, I know that more than ever, I have to find other parents to talk to just to validate what I'm experiencing. And it, you know, in a way that I know that I may not have been doing as much before the pandemic. I'm actively reaching out to parents, you know, friends all across the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is your kid struggling in school too? Right? Like I'm taking that step of being a little bit vulnerable in order for me to get some of my needs met. For sure.
Absolutely. And being vulnerable is very important. You know, I teach my nursing students that all the time. I'm like, one of the first steps in connectivity with humanity, it has nothing to do with being a nurse or a therapist or whatever, just connecting as a human is allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and share those things. You know, that's how we get closer. That's how we connect. And so, yeah, absolutely. Reach out to, you know, friends and family and other people.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, what I will also say, and you know, you may have a slide on this, Deana, but I mean, I'll be very honest. I wish we could just press pause on like all kind of grades and tests and school, because the one thing that I know will get us through this is if we do invest that time to connect. And, you know, I will say that I think like back in, you know, March of 2020, do you remember back then when this all began? There was like a month where we all were like off of work and like the whole planet just shut down.
Yeah.
And people were like, I'm making bread and I'm going hiking and I'm doing all these amazing things. And there was this sense of like, we're getting a pass, right? Like we all get to focus on just what's going to keep us safe and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we all predicted, right? Like everybody's feeling like we got to get back to, you know, whatever normal is.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I wish we could rewind and remember that, like, man, that first few weeks of this quarantine, we gave ourselves permission to do nothing but connect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something has unfolded in the, you know, subsequent months where it's like, we have to get back to normal. And I think we'd be better served to, I mean, I know it's hard as a parent to not worry about, you know, my kid's future, but I think they're going to be okay. What they really need is for us to slow down and connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also the other thing too, sorry, I'm stepping in, but you said something that I was like, oh, so the getting back to normal is a little rough since we don't have a normal yet. We don't have normal. This isn't normal. We're pretending it is because we've lived in it so long, but it's not. And I think we need to honor that.
Yeah.
as parents and in our kids, and remind them of that. This is not normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I'm so glad, Juni, that you brought that up about the connectivity issue. You know, I've had parents say to me, it's more important to me to maintain my relationship with my daughter than it is to be on her all the time, harassing her to get this done, get this done, get this done. And frankly, that's how it should be, right? Like that should be the priority for us, is our relationship with our children, you know. And speaking from an educator's perspective, of course, you know, there's some pressure on educators to make sure that students get a certain amount of homework in order for them to progress, you know. I think it should be less, you know. Of course, we need to continue to educate our youth, but we got kind of thrown into this thing and said, continue to get them their education, but do it in a way that they're feeling safe and comfortable and supported. And it's an impossible task, or it seems very challenging at times.
Absolutely.
So yes, thank you for that, both of you. Those are amazing points. Like, our relationship is the priority for us, right? And then it's not normal. We're living in a time where we're trying to make it up as we go, and we've been doing that, right? So we just have to find what works best for us and continue to foster our relationships, because like Juni said, that's what's going to ultimately get us through is those relationships. And just be gentle with ourselves. Another thing is just, really please try to be gentle with yourself. Nobody's an expert in this arena, nobody, so absolutely. Some of the other things that are on the list here that I have is teach your youth vocabulary for sharing their feelings and model sharing your own. A lot of times, some of our kids, they don't know how to express what they're feeling, and to model that and to, without pressure or any judgment, just help them learn how to express what they're experiencing or what they're feeling in a safe way. I think that's really important. Kids they're developing, they're learning, their brains are still, developing. There's a lot going on, and we're pulling them out of what has been a de facto social learning setting, right? I mean, kids learn socialization by being with their peers in school. They learn, that probably wasn't the right way to ask that question, or that wasn't the right way to talk to that friend, or, they develop how to socialize with their peers mostly, okay? So sure, there's still, some of them are still meeting with their peers in class and Zoom, and there's some hybrid classes and whatnot, but we've taken away a lot of like what we considered normal progression of how to learn socialization. And in socialization is communication. And so we've kind of taken that away. Kids hear how other people talk about their feelings and express themselves, and they learn from that and they go forward. So in a way, we just have to be just open to just talking to them about like what they're experiencing and helping them with that. We're kind of like stepping in as part of that to help them learn how to communicate. So does that make sense? I know that's kind of a strange way to express it, but it's something that I think that we're overlooking in a bigger picture, is that the socialization piece is huge, and expressing themselves is a big part of that. So we need to kind of make sure that they're able to, one, express themselves, and two, model like using feeling words and stuff to help identify how we can move forward or identify it or address it, I should say.
100%.
All right. What's that? Yeah, okay, 100%.
100.
Yeah, make room for family fun time. I mean, I think that's important too. That's part of how we care for one another. It's how we become enriched and how we develop memories and connection. So fun time is important. I have a link on here on the PowerPoint, and Celeste has said that she can share that. It's how to foster resiliency in your teen. It's yet another list, but you can look at that at your leisure and talk about it, and discover some of the things that are on that. I think it's not my work. It's online. You'll find it online, and it's very informative. I think relatively easy to follow and incorporate into your lifestyles. It talks about nurturing a positive self-view, modeling that. Like I can't tell you how many times I've heard people that I admire and respect say to others, be gentle with yourself when you're beating yourself up, because we're all doing that. We're all saying like, oh my God, I'm the worst parent in the world. I did this and this, and they were playing video games all day and all I could do. Okay, be gentle with yourself. That happened. That's okay. Like we're just surviving this in a way, and we want to learn how to thrive in it, but we're in a difficult environment to thrive. So what we need to do is be gentle with ourselves and use that positive view, like what's good about like what we did today, and what's great about our kids, and what's great about our relationship, and try to bring the focus back a lot of times to that. And I think that gives us some strength to move through it, to focus on the positive view about what's good about us, what's good about what we're doing, and what's good about our kids and what's happening, And I think also like to build resiliency, I think it's really important to model helping others and encouraging your kids to help others. That allows not only like a different exposure to different people with different worldviews and different situations. and it helps stretch a kid, like that, build that elasticity, that flexibility in learning that there's all sorts of different people, and helping them feels really good. And it also helps me learn about what people are going through in other situations. And it helps me have some compassion for myself when I'm going through something and I need to ask for help, right? So modeling helping others and encouraging your kids to do so is a great way to encourage flexibility. Yeah, I just think that that's huge. And, you know, there's been a lot of resiliency studies, and one of them specifically talks about how helping others from the beginning is really good for kids to adapt and have that flexibility. So that's important. And like I said, there's a whole list of things that I want you guys to have in your toolbox to use for exploring that resiliency model. All right. So I'm going to just segue into my favorite thing for a minute. Unless, Juni, do you want to talk? Is there anything you want to say or touch on regarding the resiliency of our kids, encouraging that?
Yeah. So, you know, I want to be, let's see. So I think right after the fire, you know, this kind of term Butte strong became a thing, right? And the word resiliency got used a lot. And we even had like a beer that was named Resilience, right? Beer, right? So it kind of started to not have as much meaning for me, that word, because I think we started to use the word resilience almost like what we really mean is, could you just suck it up, please? Right? When we would say, like, we need to make these students more resilient. What I was hearing was, we just need to teach the students to suck it up, right? Like, it could be so much worse. We're not living in war times, right? But here's the thing, your brain doesn't really know the difference if you're in Darfur or Butte County. Right? Your brain is doing whatever it needs to do to adapt towards safety, right? So resilience is that ability to kind of tenaciously look for that adaptation that helps you feel safe, right? And so when I think about resilience in our students, I think about just what you've been talking about, Deana, like that over and over and over again. I take a risk and I fail and then I try again. Take a risk and I fail and I try again. And in a social context, you're totally right. Like what I've been reading articles that it's the micro interactions that like we all are missing out on, right? That like, oh my gosh, your shoes are so cute, right? And then you get this little boost of like, you know, happy, you know, hormones and oxytocin and all that stuff. That's what we're all lacking right now. And at the same time, we're saying like, that was a weird way to say that, right? And then learning, oh, maybe I need to regroup and find a different way of interacting, right? Like that opportunity to test and retest and try again, and the tenacity of always coming back, to me, that's what resilience is. It's not an ability to just suck it up and pretend that everything's fine. So when you think about resiliency with your students, that's what, my hope is that we can hold that, you know, if they're not doing well in class, to me, I mean, I know this is hard. We just got a bad report card at our house, right? So, right, a not so great report card on ourselves, but it's not so much the grade that I care about. It's what you're going to do, that you're going to have the self-compassion that you need to try again. Like that to me is what real resilience is. So I just want to say that, because that word resilience, I think, is getting misused.
I love that. What a wonderful and beautiful reframe on the word resilience. Yeah, I never thought about that, how it could be interpreted. Some people could interpret the word that way and how it's been used until you said that. That is great. And absolutely, you know, when I'm speaking of resilience, that's what I'm talking about too, is being gentle with yourself, trying, and then being gentle with yourself and trying, and just, you know, that's what I see resiliency as. But I absolutely, you know, that is wow, that I had never thought about that perspective, Juni. That's really interesting. And now that you say that, I can really see how that word was used, or people could perceive that word as being used as buck up, camper kind of thing.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
that's important. We do that. That's not what we're wanting or encouraging. You know, like self-love and self-compassion is the hugest part of resiliency that I see. You know, and with the kids the same way. Like, you know, just making sure that they're learning to be gentle with themselves and know that it's, you know, they're okay, they're trying, they're doing their best, and they're going to just keep trying. You know,
Right.
that's how we learn, and that's how we grow.
And the really, I mean, for me, it's that, and that is an approach that is vitally important, whether you are in a war zone or whether you're safe in your home, you know, in front of your computer, right? Because again, like, I don't know that your brain registers the difference in real life.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I am so glad that you brought that up, because that is not something I've considered, and I think that bears further dialogue. I love it, and that's kind of what I was hoping with this presentation. We all bring things to the table and insights and talk about it and raise our awareness, and that's great. Thank you so much.
You bet. You bet.
All right, so just like I said, as an adjunct to things that we can do to help, being outdoors in this pandemic, a lot of people have been indoors for safety. We keep ourselves safe. You know, we want to some degree, we have to isolate, and we're Zooming and all this stuff. But there are safe ways to just be outside and get into nature, and that is what I'm like to advocate for and encourage. Like it's up on the slide, there was a 2015 study that researchers compared the brain activity of healthy people after they walked for an hour and a half in a natural setting compared to an urban one. And what they found was those who did the nature walk had lower activity in the prefrontal cortex, and that's a part of the region of the brain that's active during rumination or repetitive thoughts that focus on negative emotions. Like, you know how we all do that. We just kind of get stuck sometimes. And that's what we don't want to encourage. We'd like to, like, you know, nature encourages us to kind of just let our mind go and appreciate what's around us. You know, we feel when we're in nature, the cold breeze, we smell like the fresh grass or the earth, we hear like the birds sing. So there's this experiential thing that kind of wraps us up like a blanket and taps on all our senses. And then there's just the wellness component of just getting out and getting exercise, breathing fresh air. There's a lot to it. And I think that, you know, like I said in the beginning, I worked for a long time in crisis services with really individuals that had Medi-Cal or were underinsured or indigent. So they had, their resources were depleted. But one of the things that I tried to do early on was host outdoor activities. And we have Upper Park, like, you know, we'd meet at the park and we'd do hikes. And, you know, I didn't do any studies at that time. It was just part of my caring for my patients. I'd have groups and stuff at the park, but it had such an, anecdotally, it had such a wonderful impact on individuals. And I'm talking about individuals that had schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, you know, some real mental illnesses that they struggled with. And this really helped, as opposed to just adding another medication, having some outdoor activity. So I am a big supporter of this. And, you know, I think it could help parents and their kids if they can, you know, get the time to do it and get out. We talked about play earlier, playing with your family, having fun with your family. This is one of those things, like, maybe pack a picnic lunch, go to Upper Park, get out, put the blanket down, laugh, talk, just be away from your house for a while, you know, that kind of thing. I think it's really good for us. Okay, so I think we all kind of know that. I'm not sharing anything that is just like, you know, big news. We know nature's good for us. You know, there's plenty of research and literature out there that indicate that. I think the biggest challenge that parents are facing is how do they get their kids away from their devices and get them outdoors, right? I mean, I think that's a common theme. I know with my nieces and nephews, that's what my sister is saying. Like, I would love to get them outside, but you know, I don't want to fight with them, and all they want to do is their screen time, okay? And that is going on everywhere. I think I hear that a lot about the screen time and not wanting to fight. So, these are just some suggestions that I've had that have worked with kids, younger kids that are like addicted to their screen time or are very connected to their devices. So these are some things that I, might help you as a tool to put in your toolbox. You guys are talking about older kids. So, I mean, high school, 8th grade, geocaching is one of the things that in that age group has been super fun. Kids have loved that. And you can just do that as a parent. You can go out and plant little things, like hide little things, and then set that up for them. And you can do it all over Upper Park and then just let them loose to go to hunt that down within a certain area where they're safe and you can be around. So in that age group, that works really good. And like I said, also taking family picnics, if you have pets or dogs, taking their dog up there. So, it's hard, but these are some of the things that you can suggest is like putting limits on screen time, just having like, this is how long, you're allowed to have your screen time. Some families do that, and some families are struggling with that, which is what I was saying is the fight part, like okay, you've had your hour of screen time, now it's time for us to put that away. That conflict can erupt during that time, and that's the biggest challenge. But some of these things might provoke some of the kids to go out and get involved, and that's my hope, is that we can somehow find a hook. And your kids better than anybody. Like I said, like Juni brought up earlier, these are just lists of ideas. You might have some wonderful ideas about what might motivate your kid to get outside. It's good for us too as parents, to get outside and be there with our kids. So anyway, these are some of the things that I came up with. I know that's one of our biggest challenge right now, is getting our kids off their devices and getting them actually outdoors. We all know it's good for us. It's just a matter of how are we going to get there. And Celeste, you had mentioned that, right? That you had do you have any recommendations for screen time?
Well, my recommendation is go easy on yourself, parents. It's rough.
The conflict.
It is. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said before, there's a lot of guilt that happens with parents right now, because what our kids would normally be doing is being off with their friends, and we're preventing mm-hmm. them, and that's how they look at it. We're preventing them from being able to do that. So that's where I get caught up, is the guilt of them doing too much screen time. One thing that I did compromise with, and this might help other parents because teenagers love their music, is we've gone for walks and I've said, you can listen to your music on our walks. So that's our compromise. Luckily it's in their ears, so I don't have to hear it, but and then sometimes I say to them, you can listen to your music as long as you're engaging in conversation. So that's the other thing that we kind of discuss. We make negotiations.
Hey, that is wonderful. I think that's a great idea. You're getting them outside, they're breathing fresh air, they're getting exercise, and they're getting to listen to their music. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I totally agree that, as I'm listening to what you're presenting, Deana, I'm trying not to take it personally, because I'm like, I'm the one who doesn't want to go outside. Like I get home and I'm wanting to lie in bed and scroll through, whatever social media. And I think the important thing to remember is again, that's where your kids feel safe right now. Right. Mm-hmm. And, and like you said, Celeste, I'm thinking that might also be I'm hearing my kids howling in their rooms while they're on their devices, and I think it's because they're exchanging this, this thing called TikTok. I think they're exchanging videos with each other, and so they're connecting with their devices. So again, I'm even torn, is that a terrible thing right now in this pandemic? Right. That's, better than nothing. But I'm thinking yeah, but you know what? I can at least encourage them to do that while they sit on the porch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? At least get outside and listen to nature sounds while you're doing that. Right.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. We do not want to take their that is how they're connecting. So we're not, I'm not advocating getting them off their screen time completely. Just, half hour a day of just being outside. I think it's really healthy, but absolutely. We're not going to get them off their devices, nor should we. you know, really,
Yeah.
nor should we. But that's how they're talking to their friends and playing games. Playing video games has been like the bane of my existence with my nieces and nephews, you know, like
Yeah.
but they enjoy that, you know, they're having fun
Exactly.
doing that. And in this environment, if they're having fun, like, geez, like I want them to have fun. So
Yeah.
yes, I am not advocating it. I don't think that would be helpful. And the whole point of this discussion is how can we help our youth? But I do think they would benefit from things like Juni and Celeste had great compromises or ideas about that, like headphones in, going for a walk with the family, or doing TikTok outside on the porch, you know,
Yeah.
outside getting some, whatever. Like these are
Right.
the kind of things that I think that if you know your kid and you know what would motivate them, I think it's great to encourage that stuff because they will benefit from being outside. They will
Yeah.
benefit whether they want to or not. They will benefit from just being outdoors and doing that stuff. We know that.
Absolutely. So
And it's
I don't
really
know.
important.
Yeah, I don't know if either of you saw there was some study that came out. I read, you know, some article a couple years ago on how just like getting your fingers in dirt can actually like release a little serotonin.
Yeah.
So one thing that we did is I have a friend who is like a master gardener. I am not, but she like showed me how to stick seeds in the dirt. And I have to say that like it's getting my daughters, you know, my almost 16-year-old daughters are kind of going out there to see like what happened today in the garden. And, you know, I'll ask them to go kind of pick something for the salad that night. And they're also like in this whole boho, like let's put as many plants in our room as possible. Whatever. We'll talk about that later. But it's getting them like they're repotting their plants and they're getting their fingers dirty, right? So you know, I do think that like if you've got a kid like mine, kids like mine who are like meh about actually like exercising and walking and doing, like if they can come at it from like you know, a different, you know, like sneak up on being outdoors somehow.
Right. It's like sliding the broccoli into things, like getting the veggies in somehow, like, you know, getting the outdoors in somehow. Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
Garden
steps.
Baby steps. And garden is amazing. I've seen so many kids respond well to gardening because it's evolutionary. It's moving. It's doing something.
Yes.
It's like the plants are going to come up and then they're going to bud and then you're going to be able to, like you said, pick it for your salad. Like send them out there to get some tomatoes for. That is a great way to hook kids into getting their hands dirty and being outdoors. And I do think that even reluctantly at first, they're begrudgingly out there with you planting some plants, but then they start to really like it. I've seen that before too. Like they get into it. It's
pretty magical.
One thing I was going to suggest too is a lot of the camping sites right now are closed like until May or whatever. And I think that's just normal, not because of COVID. But one thing that we have done is we've driven to campsites, parked the car and just walked around. And it's kind of nice because we imagine like, okay, what would it be like to camp here in the summer? Which site do you like the best? And we go, oh, this one's closer to the water, and we bring a picnic and whatnot. And we've done that a couple of times during the pandemic because I have to remind myself that it's still safe to go outside. And I think that's what we kind of do with tunnel vision is I think I've had to remind myself that no, outside is fine. Outside is safe. And when you do something like that where no one else is around, it's actually really incredible. I think I forgot how much nature does for us until I'm like, okay, we got to do this for a day or something. And it's really wonderful to get out there. And again, with the compromise of the kids listening to music half the time.
Right. Hey,
that's what you do. Whatever it takes. Yes.
Yeah. Like I said, it surrounds us like a blanket. Like they're still looking at cool stuff. They're still seeing the mountains or the grass or whatever. And you know what I mean? So yes, that's and walking around empty campgrounds, that's so great. You're completely social distance. They know, it sounds like nobody's out there. You know, it's a wonderful way to have an opportunity to be in space and spend time with your family. Yeah. That's a great idea.
It is. I'm
All
getting
right.
lots of ideas.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, if there's probably many parents out there that have ideas like you guys do, like that are doing things like that with their kids. So it would be kind of cool to get a collective list together of what people are doing to encourage their kids to get outside. All right. So anyway, this is just kind of, I just want to, we can continue to talk about all sorts of things. We're going to take questions, but I just wanted to leave with this. And I kind of touched on it later, just the wrapping around of sensation, but just listening, like Juni had said, having the kids do it on the back porch, their TikTok or whatever, they're still hearing nature, they're still outside, you know, that kind of stuff. It's calming. It not that this is important with kids, but it lowers blood pressure. You know, it helps you think more clearly. It helps you relax, you sleep better, you know, you have more feelings of positivity. These are just studies that have been done that talk about the benefit of being in nature and just listening, you know, and that can really help us with anxiety and help us be centered. And it's that simple. It can be that simple. Now the hard part's getting them outside, but the just the listening can be something that is beneficial to us. So I just wanted to kind of close with that, just to say it could be that easy for parents as well, like going for a little walk on their lunch break if they want, just listening to, you know, you don't have to do anything else, just be out and, you know, sit on your back patio or whatever.
Absolutely.
So with that, Celeste and Juni, please, any closing comments or feedback that you have, but I'm pretty much done.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. Thank you very much for letting me hone in on your action here. Yeah, I mean, I do think that, you know, again, if that self-compassion is so huge right now. And, you know, I just keep reminding myself that whatever it is that I think my kids need, I need like a double dose of it, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm thinking like, oh, my kids need more sleep, they need to get off their electronics, there's like another finger pointing right back at, you know, if you're pointing your finger at someone, there are 3 more pointing back at you. And like, I keep trying to remember that, you know, it's all going to go much better if I actually follow the advice that I'm trying to give them. And I also, I know that our kids need us to be as transparent as possible, right? So if we're feeling like this morning, I woke up and I was like, I am not feeling it. And, you know, yesterday I was scolding my son for like saying that he didn't want to go to school and he was hating school. And I was like, you know, you can do it. And then this morning I felt the same way. And he was actually, I think, more compassionate to me than I was to him. And he was like, yeah, that's what it is, Mom. You just got to get through the day sometimes. And I think like just recognizing that keeping that open line of communication is just huge. And we have the research to back that up, you know, that there is a study called the Positive Childhood Experiences Study. So some of you may know about the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. The Positive Childhood Experiences Study is actually the principal investigator is Christina Bethel, who is from Paradise. So she is, you know, from, you know, our area here. And she and her fellow researchers have identified 7 factors that, you know, that a kid can experience growing up that can be protective, even if they are experiencing trauma. And they're all about relationships, right? And one of them is, you know, that I grew up feeling like my feelings were attended to by my family. And so I think you're absolutely right, Deana, that the more that you can model what it means to talk about your feelings and express your feelings is awesome.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, one of the comments I thought was really interesting that one of the attendees brought up is about nature journaling.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, and I had remembered hearing about that and then forgotten about that, which, you know, it brings us to the point of, could they be doing any of their schoolwork outside. I wonder, you know, like, could they be doing some of these lessons outside instead of inside? And maybe even that would help out too. I
Yeah.
think we're all a little bit Zoom fatigued,
Uh-huh.
and screen fatigued, and so I just thought that was really interesting. Is there, the other question that came up was, are there anything that as parents and our responses that we should avoid or that could make their mental health even worse? So,
Like saying the wrong thing. Is that
right, I
kind
think
of what I'm
that's,
hearing?
yeah.
I think a lot of that goes back to, and I'm obviously going to let the expert here touch on that, but I think that goes back to compassion, self-compassion as well. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to say the right thing and do the right thing, and ultimately it's my view that it comes down to being transparent and vulnerable and just discussing things. So that's what I have to say on that. Juni, I'd love to hear what you have to say on that.
I mean, kind of the same thing, right? Like, so again, when I think of resilience, it's being able to repair when something doesn't go right, right? So what I'm always telling folks and reminding myself is that, you know, certainly I encourage you to, as much as possible, before you go to the advice giving, to try to start with validating, right? That, you know, yeah, it sucks to have to do school this way, right? And, you know, I think we all feel it, like our kids aren't getting the experience that we want them to get, right? So I don't think it's necessarily hard to validate them, but I know for me myself that because I'm feeling so distressed by what they're experiencing, I want it all to go away really quickly. And so I start giving advice. I have a sticky note above my computer. It's a quote from Anne Lamott, and it's helping is the sunny side of control, right? So when I'm not feeling in control, I want to help my kids, right? And so I like try to jump in and fix it for them. And so I think like that's one thing I'm going to encourage everybody to just pay attention to. Am I doing this because I want the distress to go away, or am I, you know, jumping in with advice or help, really because my child is asking for that, right? And then I think we all know when it doesn't go well, right? We all know when we said something, and, you know, whether it's, you know, as obvious as a door slam or as maybe not as obvious as just a, you know, like, I'm not going to, you know, talk to the hand mom, right? Or whatever it is. I think it's important for all of us to learn how to go back to our child when we're both, you know, kind of out of fight or flight mode and say, I screwed up. I'm sorry I said what I said. Because I think like that's what I know is coming up for me a lot more. The longer we're in this, you know, especially in these winter months, and we are indoors more and we are getting on each other's nerves more, you know, the risk of saying something that is going to hurt the other person or undermine their dignity and make them feel puny, it goes up because we're human. And I think like as long as we kind of step back and say, I need to go back and say something. I need to, you know, make a heartfelt apology, right? Like, you know, that I think wires, you know, your brain in a new way that's meaningful, right?
Yeah, and that's modeling like that we talked about, modeling that expression of feelings. And it's okay to admit like, hey, I didn't handle that right. I'm so sorry.
Exactly.
Like, so they can,
Exactly.
like, it's okay to do that. Like everybody does it. Mom does it. I'm going to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
For
it's
real.
also being vulnerable. You're being vulnerable when you do that. And I love that. That's absolutely,
Yeah.
I totally love it.
And too many
Yeah.
adults don't know how to apologize or take
Seriously.
responsibility. So,
I think
Right.
too many people don't know how to,
Yeah.
just like, period. Yeah. Kids
right.
and adults and yeah.
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 But in my defense, there are always dishes in that sink when I get home, right? Like we have this conversation every night. Just wash the dishes.
Not
But I
asking.
apologize when I fly off the handle because I do love them.
Yes.
what are some of the warning signs that is not just being a teen that parents should look out for? Like, what are some of the things that, okay, you need to get professional help at that point?
Okay, go ahead, Juni.
Well, I mean, hopefully we are on the same page with this. So, I'm just even going to start with reframing, like thinking of them less as warning signs and more as invitations. Like I did a suicide intervention training where they really emphasized that, those behaviors that might feel, whether it's scary or irritating or off-putting, they're all invitations to ask more questions, right? So I just want to put that out there right away that, let's say your student, your child is withdrawing a lot more than they normally would. It might seem counterintuitive, but that might be an invitation to, like for your child, it might be better to send a text, even if they're in the next room, than to actually go in their room and say, hey, we need to talk, right? So sometimes just like initiating a conversation in any way that is going to be, feel like an opening for that student. I think, I really try to, again, right, like the list of warning signs is really tricky because, right, like there's some students who like you wouldn't think anything was wrong, right? So I think, I don't want to be too loosey-goosey about this. Like on the one hand, if you sense a change in your child, definitely kind of approach like, hey, I'm noticing that, I mean, right, like for my son, not bathing for 3 days is totally normal, right? So I wouldn't, that's on a list of warning signs, right? So I'm not going to call him out on that. But, if we meet once a week to play some games with some friends, right? Some online games. If he didn't want to do that, I'd be like, ooh, something's up with that child, right? And then I do think that's why, like, when we aren't under stress and when we aren't feeling, when there seems like we are in kind of that state of calm, that's when you want to open up the conversation, right? Like, I try to say to my kids, like, you don't need to talk to me if you're thinking about hurting yourself or if something's really getting you down. But remember all of our friends that you can text, like, I'm just going to remind you that they're all in your phone, right? Like we have some other adult friends that I tell them, please, you don't have to reach out to mom. You don't have to talk to mom or dad, but we've got some of these other adults that you can reach out to. So does that help? I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, no, I love that. Having all these caring adults in your child's world so that whoever they feel comfortable, it's okay to go to them. And I think I forget that sometimes that I need to
Takes a village, y'all.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we are so focused on doing it ourselves. I forget that maybe I should be saying to the kids, hey, you remember Uncle Brian's here in case you want to reach out to him, and reminding them that they have those tools.
Yeah.
That's really important.
And truly that, like, take advantage of those times when like between semesters or between, like tests or whatever, I notice that my kids are a little less stressed. And so we're laughing more, we're having more fun. And, I don't want to like change the whole mood of, family game night or anything, but those might be moments that I say, how's it going? When was the last time you talked to a friend? Right? Like, so when they're not feeling, just when they have the brain space to talk more.
We've said, what are the cons of this pandemic and what are the pros? And it's interesting because they do come up with some. And quite honestly, I do too. I mean, there are some things about it. It's that I actually do appreciate. But yeah, those kind of conversations and just throwing the question out there and see what they come up with is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other thoughts on that?
That's an awesome answer.
So what about, one of the questions is, if things begin to get dangerous or out of hand, what steps can I take to get more help for my child? I know, Deana, you had the crisis line number in your presentation. I'll go ahead and throw that in the chat.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, that is, if you're getting to a situation where you're not feeling safe and you don't feel like your child is safe, you reach out for professional help. If you need immediate help, you can call the Chico Police Department. They would come out to do an assessment there, or just transport your child to a safe place, which would be the ER in Chico, and then mobile crisis team from Butte County would come do an assessment. Um, that's the apex of crisis. That's pretty much that's up here, and that is what you do. I mean, you would call the police if you couldn't manage to get your child into the car and get to a safe place. That's what you would do for crisis.
And then I think, Deana, you'd also put like the Trevor Project
Yeah.
hotline, and even our national suicide hotline. Those, and I believe they have text options. I know Trevor does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that there is a text option for the national hotline as well. I think it's 741-741, I think. Don't quote me on that. But your student can reach out, your child can reach out on their own as well. But what I would always say when I was working at Chico State, I would always say to parents, like, when in doubt, just give us a call, right? So if you are feeling, that's why the calls went up so much, because I think you're right. The parents were like, this doesn't seem right. My spidey senses tell me something's not right here. That's what those of us who work those lines, that's what we're there for, is to help kind of talk you through it all. So.
Yeah, crisis lines are a great resource because they're anonymous. You don't have to say who you are. You can just express what's going on. And thankfully there are text options, because I think youth appreciate that more, oftentimes, to text, and those resources are there, and good to let your kids know that they're there, so they can, if they need to, like you said, there's the adults in the family that they're close to that they could reach out to, but there's also, if they don't want to do that, there's the Trevor Project and different things where they can text and get some help.
And also the counselors at school, as well as the teachers.
Absolutely.
I know
and crisis services. Yeah.
Right. I know my son has his favorite teachers that he just absolutely loves to see them. And I always think, oh, thank goodness. Again, it's that village. It takes a village.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you both. I mean, this is absolutely wonderful, and I'm sure that all the attendees are so appreciative of your help. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your night to help parents. We really appreciate it. And for more webinars, we do have that on our website, inspirechico.org. And then we have parenting webinars. But thank you both so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Great.
All right.
This was great.
Thank you. And to all the attendees, thank you for also being here. All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.